everybody, welcome back to the channel. Being here, we really appreciate it. It's been a little bit of a hard one to get this one live, but today we're going to be talking about the Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord series that I did about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, somewhere right on there. This will be version 2, or the 2021 update. So I'm really excited about this. So many of you guys have been asking for this for like 6 months, and it's hard to do all these, but there's a lot of different software. There's a lot of alternatives. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to have someone on here with me live. He's actually out of Iran. He's just he's got an amazing story, basically using software alternatives, not just only for, let's say, necessity, but also due to some things about himself that he just doesn't want to use other means of getting Adobe software. Let's just put it at that. Now, I am going to use a handle for him. His name will be Yar, and we always want to kind of keep everything semi-anonymous, if you know what I'm saying, when it comes to overseas, just in case. But anyways, we're going to have him on now, and what I'm going to do is this entire live, I'm going to try to make it about an hour long, right around there. It might go over a little bit, but during this time, you can ask any questions of Yar or myself. Doesn't make a difference what it is, just nothing political, right? No politics, right? Like we always say, no religion, no politics. So any other questions go. So it doesn't matter if it has to do with gear or Adobe stuff, what he's using, what I'm using, any questions that you have. Also, in the comment area, I want you guys to add in there, in the chat, things that you want me to talk about, different pieces of software as alternatives that you want me to look at. It doesn't matter what it is. Any suggestions, because I'm going to be writing them all down. And when I do the different Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord series, specific, let's say, topics like on Photoshop or on Lightroom or on InDesign or Premiere or whatever it is, I'll bring in those pieces of software also to test now that we're current, a year and a half later. So anyways, without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in Yar. There he is. How are you doing, my friend? Are you able to hear me? There you go. There you are.
I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent, excellent. So before we get started, I just want to let everyone know who you are. Just give a little bit of a, as I call it, the elevator speech, just who you are, what you do, your background, what are you currently doing, what you were doing before, that type of thing.
All right. So let's call myself your oracle on the Digiverse. And I live in Iran. I was a student in computer engineering for about 2 years until I just let go of that field and changed to television and digital arts.
Nice. So television, digital arts, I guess would be the equivalent to our TV production. So that's a big difference, but going from programming to anything having to do with art. So you got the math side, and now you have the art side. That's something that I did also. I was selling software, and I went for computer programming, all this thing. Then I just changed over to a child psych degree, and then finally I went over to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale for commercial art and advertising design, photography, videography, TV production, all that type of stuff. So yeah, we're pretty much on the exact same wavelength here of the stuff that we're doing. So I think that was fascinating when we first talked. Now, we spoke yesterday a little bit, and I want everyone to know your story.
A little bit for 3 hours.
Just doing a tech check. So let me just say that if Yar, let's say, drops off at any time, kind of a little bit live until he comes back. Like he said, he's from Iran. From Iran, coming in through us, we're going through VPN, we're going through proxies and all kinds of other stuff, obviously because of the situation over there in comparison to here, and vice versa. So, I'm ecstatic that we can have you on, because I think it's just so super cool. Anyway, so Let's just talk a little bit about the software that you're using or just your story in general. I know we were talking a little bit about the reasons that you use let's say, Adobe software and kind of, so I want you to talk a little bit about it. I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, I guess. So around like 2016, no, sorry, 2014, I just decided to like not pirate any software. I had to use original software. Doesn't matter what company, doesn't matter for what purpose. If I couldn't get it legally, I wouldn't use it. So this might sound pretty normal, but like in Iran, pirating is the norm. Like I got ridiculed for not pirating actually for a while. Let me take you to the magical time of March 2018. In March 2018, I got my new camera, and so I decided to get an editing software for it. I was going to get Lightroom, I think 2016, like the last one that wasn't a part of Creative Cloud. And it was pretty expensive. Like I had to give up on an extra lens I wanted to buy in order to get that software. So I just said, I'm not going to buy it, and went back home. My camera was a 200D, so it was a very new camera, and that was where my problem began. I went online, I searched for like the best editing softwares, like Raw Therapy came in, Dark Room came up, Adobe of course was there, and a bunch of other softwares. And because my camera was new, none of them actually supported my camera. Darkroom did support it, but it didn't support a specific feature. Raw Therapy supported it, DxO supported it, On1 supported it, and Lightroom and Photoshop. And that was it. Anything else just straight up didn't support it.
Yeah, that was, let me just jump in real quick and I'll let you continue. That's one of the things that has always been a problem when it comes to Adobe. If they don't come out with the camera support soon enough, what a lot of people have had to do is take those raw images and then run them through a converter to convert them into DNG. And then those DNG, of course, are more of an agnostic type of format, and then you can use them in just about every software. But that has always been a crippling factor when it comes to Adobe and you having a brand new camera, because there's very little support. Whereas, like you said, there's other software that will support them like immediately, whereas Adobe will take their own sweet time. And that we've seen forever. It's been even before CC. Adobe has always dragged their heels when it comes to new cameras, and we've seen it even more as of late. And why is that? Well, they don't really have that much of a, let's say, push to be able to make updates and upgrades. Why? Because everyone's paying every month. There's no reason to have to make really big modifications anymore to allow people to purchase the latest and greatest update, because they just get your money anyways. So, but yes, using the raw images out of a brand new camera has always been an issue from day one. And a lot of the other companies or the other software out there, you didn't have that problem as much. So I don't know, that's probably one of the main reasons why you ended up having to go at that time to another piece of software.
I guess the Creative Cloud did support it, but like it was Creative Cloud. I couldn't get it. There was no way for me to get Creative Cloud. I said, okay, fine. Let's go look at DxO and On1 that support it. I went online and I found out that there is no way to get it. Aside from the website. And I don't have international banking. So I was like, with Raw Therapy and GIMP. So for a while, I used Raw Therapy and GIMP. Like I got a TIFF file from Raw Therapy, then transferred it to GIMP for like advanced editing, Photoshop stuff. I hated GIMP. I hated its user interface. So I started looking more, and I found that there's Affinity Photo that recently popped up in my research. But again, they also didn't support it. I kept on with this for a couple of months until I was like, I can't take GIMP anymore. I'm going to take a risk and get Affinity Photo, because that's the only premium software that was available in a store that I could actually buy from, which was Microsoft Store. And it was on discount that day for like $20. So I just went for it. 2 years after my purchase, they finally added 200D. I could use it for editing.
Wow. Yeah, that's a major time frame. And what I thought was fascinating too is in your country, you need to be able to make your purchases through a Microsoft store, because the other stores are not available to you. You can't really make those purchases, so it has to go through Microsoft Store. And I thought that it was very odd that Affinity Photo was on the Microsoft Store, but a lot of the other packages are not. So I don't know why that is. I have not a clue, but it is definitely something to think about if you are, listening from other software lines. It might be something to make sure that your software is available on Microsoft Store, because then folks like you would be able to buy it. Now, what I also thought was interesting is the amount of money that you had to pay for the Affinity product, which was $20 some dollars, in comparison to what the normal monthly pay that you would receive for working in your country was, which was a major chunk.
It would have been like 10, multiply the number I say by 10, it will be my official currency. Okay, so I just use Tomans because that's what we commonly use. Adobe would cost me 1 million Tomans, and my entire kit costed me 5.
Wow.
So I either had to like give up 1/5 of my budget, or I just could go for something else.
Amazing. That is amazing.
And Affinity costed me like 25,000 Tomans. So it's like 1/4 of the price.
Gotcha. So you're looking at, let's say, $25 US, whereas in your country, you're making $30, $40, $50, but sometimes in a month, right?
Yeah.
So that's a major cost to be able to do it. And I think anyone listening could understand that, Yar here was a programmer first, right? And then went into the creative side. And so he knows what it takes to be able to write software. And it is not easy. So this is, I think, one of the reasons probably why he didn't go down the counterfeit or cracked or this type of software, and he decided to pay for it. Even though it's so expensive for him to get the Affinity Photo, he still did it because that was like the right thing to do, and I really commend him for it. Whereas in his country, you were able to go to, as far as what I understand, to any of the retail establishments and purchase like an Adobe Photoshop, let's say, or Adobe Lightroom or something for pretty cheap, and it's counterfeit. And it's just okay. That's just the way it is over there. So, I really commend you for doing that. I think that is awesome that you ended up, stepping up, paying for it, and going with Affinity Photo. Now, the guys over at Serif, they had me do a training during their lockdown seminar. And it was an honor to be able to do that for them. The people over there are really good. I like Serif's product. I like all the Affinity stuff, the Affinity Photo, Publisher, Designer. It's all really good software, and is very much so a great alternative to Adobe software. Now, there is a lot of, before we go any further, I just want to say that if you go over to my website, let me pull this up. I'm going to stick this into the chat because I think it's kind of important. Let's see, here we go. we're going to stick this into the chat. If you go over to, let me see here. If you go over to the website, JCristina.com, you can go to a page that has all of the Life After Adobe list of all of the alternatives that I tested the last time. So I don't have it here in front of me right now, but I'm going to stick that in the chat in just a second. But it's really, really powerful because there's a ton of them, and I give a price for each one. So some of the alternatives are free, like Yar was talking about with GIMP. But GIMP sometimes is a struggle. It's not easy. It's free open software. The UI, that user interface, is just not, let's say, 2020, 2021. It's outdated by like 10 plus years. They're getting better. They're definitely getting better. But the interface is not as good. Whereas Affinity product, and there's a lot of other products, they're up to the times. You pay for them, or some of them are even free. So, but anyways, I'm going to put that into the chat in just a minute. But I want to just take a look at a couple of these questions real quick. Now, Thomas Lloyd says Adobe don't get money. Obviously, they don't get money anymore because the Adobe cutting the cord purge. And yes, there was a lot of people when I did the Adobe cutting the cord series. There was thousands of people that wrote in that said that they were cutting the cord and that they really appreciated that. That playlist I put together. Matter of fact, I'll throw that playlist also into chat because if you haven't went there and watched that as of yet, there is, I think, about 20. I think it's about 20. There's a bunch of alternatives in there that you can go and take a look at because that is a powerful thing to be able to do and see. What I did was I tested out each piece of software and I compared it to others. I didn't tell you what to buy. I just did the comparison, and then you could decide what works best for you. Certain things do different things than others, and everyone has a different use case, just like cameras. There's no perfect camera, just like there's no perfect software. So definitely go and check that out. Anyways, I'll give you back the floor to continue where you left off, and I'm going to go and find that link so that everyone can go and take a look at all of those alternatives, and we'll get into those in just a second.
All right. So let's first talk about raw therapy because that was the first open source program aside from Darktable that fully supported 200D, like the camera I used. Darktable also supported it, but it missed a feature from a table that I saw during that time. Raw therapy was pretty much Lightroom. It was easy to read. I could understand its interface with a little bit of like playing around with it. But my biggest problem with it was that it was a bit slow. It had media management, like you could manage your assets with it, but I've never used that because I just needed it for edit. After that, I got Affinity Photo. The develop persona was just pretty much Lightroom for me. Like I could just easily move around in it, pretty much do basic edits. And there were other personas for like doing literally anything else. What I liked about it was that it was pretty modular, like nothing was cluttered just in there. Everything wasn't in your face. Everything was neatly categorized and you could just work around with it. Like the icons are very readable. Like once one of my friends wanted a feature and I didn't know where that feature was. And I just looked at the icons. I was like, I think this is it. And I was correct. That was it. That was the actual thing. And this is pretty much all I had for Affinity. It was fast. It had a very interesting export persona. You could chop up the images to however parts you wanted. And just boom, it was over.
Yeah, that is definitely, that is one of the good things about it. We got a question or a statement in here. Let's see. It's Frosty Flake says you own nothing and be happy is Adobe's motto. And that's exactly right. What happens is with Adobe, now that they went down that CC or lease type of model or rental model, you own nothing. And at any given time, you just don't have the software. And I remember when I cut the cord with Adobe and I deleted every single piece of Adobe software on all of the computers in the studio. I remember that when I did that, literally I actually videoed it, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds after that, it all stopped working. It was just amazing how once I actually shut down my service or my account, all of my software, this is prior to deleting it, all of my software just stopped working immediately. And then of course I deleted it all and we went to alternatives. Now that wasn't an easy thing. Whenever you cut the cord with Adobe, it's never easy because you've used it most of the time for so long. As a commercial artist, as a photographer, videographer, going to school at the time, most of the time, these colleges will push you into Adobe products. And Yara's going to talk about that in just a second. That's just what they do. And why that is, I really don't know. They are the standard out there, but still, I think that you need to learn everything. A perfect example is with video, okay, with production. They want you to learn Premiere. Prior to that, you had to learn Final Cut. Well, Final Cut kind of went the way of the dinosaur, so to speak, and they neutered it. It turned into a mess, so everyone now had to learn Premiere. Well, during all of this time, when they were pushing Premiere on everyone, all of the movies were being color graded using DaVinci Resolve. Well, why the hell not teach DaVinci Resolve? DaVinci Resolve is free, and I would say it's every much so as good as Premiere, especially today. There's a lot of bug fixes that have been worked on, and there's a lot of other video alternatives out there also, besides DaVinci. But DaVinci Resolve is probably one of the better ones. Yeah, I want you to talk about that a little bit, Yar, about just recently, you just did a video for your video production class or whatever, and you didn't use Adobe, and now all of a sudden you kind of have to figure something out, kind of a workaround, right?
Yeah. So during my time in my new field, I directed 3 videos and had to edit one of them myself. The first one was recorded in a church to jumping through a lot of hoops. That was very hard to get in. For that we used Corel actually, because my teammate only knew how to use Corel. Corel worked pretty well. It actually had green screen. It worked pretty fast. It didn't crash on us at all. But whenever I gave him an image, it only could read PNGs. And my PNGs are massive. They're 125 megabytes each. Whenever I gave one of them to Corel, the Corel would just give up. It was whoa, hold your horses. This is too much. This is too big. So that was one of the issues with Corel. The other part was for making the credits. I had a habit of putting people's heads next to their name in the credits. Syncing that with the text was a little bit of a trouble with Corel. That was that. I cannot show you the video. I cannot point at the video because the church made me not publish it in anywhere else aside from the university.
Right.
So I cannot really show you anything. After that, I made I directed the death video. My friend learned the DaVinci Resolve because I recommended it.
Nice.
And he compared it to Corel because that's what he used. His only complaint was that some of the stuff that was basic in Corel was put in advanced in DaVinci. I made the video, put it up on YouTube. It didn't crash on us. It didn't even freeze. It just worked straight up. We didn't even made optimized media for it. It just worked. And fast forward to today, not today, the last week, I was told to make a 5 or 6 minute teaser for. Wait, what did he say? I cannot read it from here. I'm blind.
That's all right.
Fast forward to last week, I had to make a 5-minute teaser for trailer for Yakuza Kiwami because I like that game. Sue me.
Yeah.
I recorded my footage using GeForce Experience, so they were looseless quality. They were very heavy. They were minute video. I exported all of them, put it on my laptop. Despite I have a more powerful PC, I put it on my weaker laptop because I'm dumb. I gave it to Premiere Pro because throughout the semester, my teacher said, no, you have to use Premiere. I begged my friend to give me access to his Adobe account so I can use it. I started putting in the files and Premiere just started crashing left and right. Every minute it crashed. I was like, okay, let's do this all over again. I opened a new project and the new project crashed. It was an empty project. There was nothing in it and it crashed. So I was like, you know what? The teacher said I have to use Premiere, but I'm not going to do that. I'm done. I just closed Premiere and launched DaVinci. And DaVinci crashed too, but not as much until I made the optimized meshes. Then I made the proxy files. DaVinci just didn't crash. Everything worked fine.
Yeah, I find I find the exact same thing happened when I moved to DaVinci Resolve. When we were using Premiere, we would have to bring in the files and they would be just too big for it. It would get kind of clogged up. It would start going really slow. Sometimes it wouldn't crash, but it would go so slow, you can't edit at the speed that it was going. And then I remember when I first tried out DaVinci Resolve, I threw the footage in, and instead of creating optimized video files, I just started editing. And I can literally edit without doing anything, just literally the raw files. Now, I built a 4K beast of a PC, so you would think that you would have no problem in either Premiere or in DaVinci. Well, Premiere had a hard time, a really hard time, whereas Final Cut, prior to that, when I was on the Apple, it would be able to do these files without a problem. But once I went into DaVinci, not a problem at all. I did not have to do any of this transcoding before, no optimized files. That cut out like 2 hours worth of time. A lot of you guys know that I will do a show sometimes on the channel, and I'll be talking about a topic of that day. And how I do it is I'm able to record at about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning when I come into studio, and I literally have it online by 12. It's out the door already. I couldn't do that before with Premiere because of how heavy it was and just how slow it was to be able to use. So yeah, DaVinci is just an amazing piece of software when it comes to that. And it's got a price of $0. So, it's free. If you want to get like a couple of little extras, like multi-core, like there's a lot of little nuances, but nothing crazy. You're able to use DaVinci just like you would Premiere, and it is definitely faster. Now, Thomas Lloyd, he says over here, which I agree with 100%. He said Adobe has become an insidious software rental model that sucks the life out of creatives through their monthly vampification of Creative Pocketbook. Absolutely, absolutely. They just suck the money out of you. And it's not even that it's really expensive. As a professional, $50 a month for me is not a lot to have their suite, okay? But the problem is that it slows down the creative, let's say, forces and the innovative forces over at Adobe. So instead of them innovating and making something really amazing with their software, they iterate. They put out these small little fixes and they give you a little bit of a different brush and a little bit of just some new AI junk that I really don't need, because I don't want the software to figure out what I want to do with my photo or video or whatever. I don't need that, right? So they just give you these little tiny steps forwards. There's nothing big. Like I said, when we were buying the full suite for the studio at $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 back in the day, we would then think about, should we wait for the half revision to go from like 5 to 5.5, or should we wait from 5 to 6? Many times we wait from 5 to 6 or 6.5 or whatever. Why? Because it's a lot of money. You don't want to spend it on multiple computers, and you're talking about $5,000, $6,000 sometimes. So by doing what we're doing now and just getting rid of it, the amount that we're saving every single year on studio-wide is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And honestly, we have not felt the difference at all. The clients want what they want. They want to see it, and they want to see something fantastic. They don't want to know what you're using to get there. Unlike a lot of times when I used to go out as a professional photographer, if you had a small camera, they wouldn't look at you as a pro, right? You had to have a big honking, DSLR, and now all of a sudden you're a professional. You're the guy with the big camera, right? Well, that's not the case when it comes to this. The companies, they just want to see a quality piece of whatever, art or an ad spot or whatever it is. They don't care how you got there. So I think that is definitely the fact. I love that, the vampification of the creative's pocketbook. That is absolutely perfect. I'm gonna have to remember that and keep it there. Let me see here. Edward says it was first Avid and then Final Cut and now Premiere. Absolutely. That's exactly how it ended up going down. Let's see. I'm going to let you keep on going. And if you see a question, once again, guys, if you have any questions for Yar, throw them in there. Ask whatever you want to ask. Like I said from the very beginning, nothing politics, nothing religion. And we're good. Ask him anything, any kind of gear that he's using, what he's using for alternatives or whatnot. So let me give you back the floor. Let me ask you in the meantime, tell us a little bit about the current gear that you're using, and is there other gear that you're looking to purchase in the near future? What do you use for the stuff that you do as of right now?
Well, for now, I'm using a 200D, which is showing me right now. And my second hand is a PowerShot G5. The Canon PowerShot G5 is a 5 megapixel camera from the early days of digital photography, I think.
Right.
It's from 2003 or something.
Yeah, that's definitely a good camera. It definitely does the job without a problem. So right now you're in that video, let's say, class. You went from this Premiere, and now you're kind of using back and forth DaVinci Resolve. For everyone, obviously you've used both. You've used Premiere, you've used DaVinci. What is, I would say, I mean, for me, I have there's no difference. I could use both without a problem. But what is is there any kind of, let's say, learning curve for going from an Adobe Premiere, for example, over to DaVinci? Is it a lot, or is it pretty much easy? An NLE is pretty much an NLE, a nonlinear editor is pretty much an NLE, or what did you find? Was it hard for you to get into it or move from Premiere to DaVinci?
Okay, so we have two questions. After this one of them is from my best friend.
Good.
Just didn't ask me up till now. And one of them is from Lloyd. So let's first answer the one that you asked, then I read the Lloyd, and after I read what my friend said. The thing is that I get overwhelmed easily. I need a clean GUI if I want to work things out. And Premiere is pretty much like Photoshop in terms of that. Everything is just put in there in front of your face. But actually, no, they changed it. They changed it in 2020. But there are still, it's pretty cluttered if you ask me.
Yeah, 100%.
In DaVinci, things are very sectioned. There's one dedicated section for cutting, and it automatically removes the spaces between them. You can put it up and down. You can even edit your audio in there pretty easily. But in Premiere, I sometimes got confused. Shortcuts didn't make a lot of sense to me. It was Control K for cutting.
Right.
I don't remember it much because
luckily you can change all of those hotkeys to whatever you want. But once again, it's something that you have to actually do to change them to get it exactly how you do, how you like to do it.
Yeah. And even in the thing about DaVinci is that when you launch it, it says that, do you want our shortcuts or do you want Premiere, or you just want to set your own? That's the first thing it asks you.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing, because if you're coming from Premiere, you can just use the Premiere shortcuts and just call it a day.
Yeah, 100%.
What I really hated about Premiere was that it really relied on all the other Adobe softwares. For example, if I wanted to make proxy files, I had to download Adobe Media Encoder, send my files there, and wait like 6 hours for them to change, then come back and do the edit. DaVinci, everything is just inside it. I can do everything and just never leave DaVinci.
Right, you brought that up.
That's
You brought
true.
up the point about audio, and some people don't know this, but you built into DaVinci. Obviously, it's like the #1 program for doing. I feel like this is an ad spot for DaVinci, right? But we're not getting paid for this; it's free. Anyways, it does give you. It's the #1 program for doing color grading, hands down. It does color grading second to none, but also it has a really good built-in audio software that you can do a ton of stuff, from noise cancellation to any kind of manipulation of a voice. You have an entire package built into it so that you can use that. So that works out really, really well. You don't have to, in the past, let's say if you wanted to do something, let's say for free, if you didn't want to use Audition or something, you would bring up like Audacity and then do your sound and then import it. You really don't need to do that with DaVinci at all because it has it built in. Have you found the same? It's pretty robust, the audio for you?
It was actually pretty too much for me. Like I don't do a lot of advanced video editing, so I just sometimes
Right.
I just like give it an echo, put 2 effects in there, and that just call it a day. But it has a lot of options. You can just adjust the mid-tones, the high tones. It can be pretty complete. You can just make a music video with it if you want. What did I want to say? Oh yeah, about the audio, I read somewhere in Reddit that DaVinci performs better in Linux, but the audio tools are better on Windows.
That's one of the
I
things
can't
that is
confirm.
really, yeah, that's one of the things that I liked about it too, is it's cross-platform. You can take a file from Linux, you can move it to Mac, you can move it to PC, which is fantastic. Not all software is like that. So I did like that about DaVinci also. Let's go
Okay,
into
so
your friend's question in there. Let me put it up there. Go ahead and jump into that
let's
one.
do Lloyd first
Oh,
because
okay.
he
Go
asked
ahead.
before my friend. Okay, so he says, what is your current workflow when you get a creative video project? That's pretty interesting because when I get to like do anything creative, I just don't do anything for like a couple of days. I just think about it. I don't touch any software until I'm sure what I want to do. And usually the start is a cup of coffee. Like without it, just nothing is gonna happen. After that, I start writing down ideas like, okay, for example, I'm gonna need these assets. I'm gonna use these clips. I'm gonna take these photos. And after all that, I put it in the editor, like any editor that I need for the project. I don't know if that's enough for Lloyd, but that's how I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I feel the same way. You have to get your kind of creative juices going first, figure out what you're going to do. And then, it always comes back to the same thing as hardware. When it comes to cameras, it's the same way with software. The software or the hardware needs to get out of the way of the creative. Some of these cameras that have a ton of different functions, the different stuff going on, it ends up being more, it's harder to create because there's so much stuff to learn, right? Sometimes when you get something that's very basic, just like what you said in comparison to all the stuff that you see in Premiere, it's the same thing with Photoshop or with all the rest of the stuff. Illustrator is just crazy, the amount of stuff that's in there. To learn it, it makes it very, very hard because it's overwhelming. Sometimes just dumbing it down a little bit and only seeing what you need to see. And now Adobe's starting to find that out a little bit, but other companies have been doing that forever. Like you said, a good GUI, a GUI, a graphical user interface is imperative to be able to just work and allow the software just to get out of the way. And that's why a lot of people loved like iMovie on Apple and stuff like that. They're just dragging stuff in, dragging, dropping, throwing in tracks, and all of a sudden they got this great video. It's like so simple, right? Whereas other companies like Premiere, like with Adobe, it's just they make it difficult, really difficult. So let's see, which other question are we going to get into? I think there was another one.
Well, there's my friend
Yes.
who asked about here. Um, this is a pretty hard question if you ask me, because
That was what for a beginner's use? Is that what the question was?
yeah, beginner. What gear do you recommend for a beginner? Because I'm not a hardware expert.
Yes, yes.
If I want to like start doing something for the first time, I first just do research, search YouTube for like different new equipment that are coming out, and I see what they comment about its
Right.
user friendliness. For example, 200D, the one that I'm using, had two different UIs. One of them was the advanced mode, and one of them was the beginner mode. I first got the camera because it was my first fully professional camera, because before that I had PowerShot G5, a point and shoot. I used the beginner GUI, and I just sat there, played with it for a long time. Just know where each button was, so I could just know how to quickly switch things. And after
Right.
that, I went to the advanced mode, moved slowly from automatic to manual.
Yeah, that is
Hello?
a major thing. Is the idea of moving from auto to manual, and I think that is that is really big. And a lot of people they'll start learning with this. I call it P for professional. They'll throw the camera on P, they'll take pictures, and the stuff comes out okay, but they have no control over it. And then they'll finally get into setting it up for shutter priority or aperture priority, and it's a little bit better. But once you get to a point where you can actually set it up through manual, throw that on M, and then dial everything in, right, yourself, you'll understand what's going on a lot better. So in certain situations where you're on, let's say, shutter priority, or if you're in aperture priority and that compensation will not get where you need it to be, you can go into manual and now set it to a setting that will actually get you that picture. A perfect example is some extreme backlighting. A lot of times the camera will not be able to compensate enough for all of that backlight. Throw it into manual, dial it in. So being able to jump in there manual is a godsend. And I think that everyone should learn it. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you're in the intermediate or a professional. Obviously, you need to be able to shoot manual. Now, just in case anyone didn't know, I threw it into the chat down here. I know you referenced the 200Z, the Canon. That is, for the people over here, it is a Rebel. It's just in case you don't know, it's a Rebel SL2. I threw it into the chat so people from over here know what camera that is, the 200D. But that is a very good camera for what it is. It works out really good. You have a lot of things that you can do with it, and there's a lot of learning into it that you can do. Some of the people think that you have to have this really good camera to make amazing photos, and we saw with a lot of people that started doing iPhonography a few years back, they were taking amazing photos with an iPhone, right? With just horrible megapixels, right? Pixels in general, tiny sensor. But they were able to do it. Why? Because it allows them to be creative and slows things down, and you're still able to do it. So it's never the equipment, it's always the photographer. The photographer makes the equipment, it's never the other way around. And that's why when I go out and I make just an amazing shot for, let's say, a fashion designer or whatever, and then I'll show it, and then someone says, "Oh my God, what camera did you use?" And I say to him, does it matter? I hate that question. Like, if the camera is the one that made that, no, it was the lighting. It was deciding what the shutter speed was going to be. What was the ISO was going to be set at? What is the background? Background is more important than the foreground. So that's why you get a lot of beginners taking really beautiful pictures, and then later on you look at them and there's like a flagpole sticking out of someone's head because they didn't look at the background. The background comes first. Then you worry about the foreground. You work in reverse. We don't want flagpoles sticking out of any heads. Let me see. What are the questions that we have in here?
So another thing is that, like, if you're like choosing between two cameras, choose the one that you can get an extra lens with. Like, if you have to choose between a body and a lens, go with the one with the lens.
Absolutely. Hands down. This is a really good one. This is a great question here for you. And I know you have the answer for this 100% for sure. And what that is Steve says his question is, does Affinity have a bridge equivalent? And the answer is no, but you do have something that you use as a bridge equivalent or replacement, right?
Yeah. Yes. So when I moved from my 5 megapixel camera that I used to take like JPEG photos with to my 200D, my file size were just very bigger. So back when I worked for a charity, I reached this issue that I just had to load Affinity or like raw therapy back and forth, and it was just taking too much time because I had to wait for it to load the image in. So I started searching around, and it was very difficult to find anything because it always shows you Lightroom or raw therapy. I don't know why, because they are not designed for that thing. I looked into it and I saw that, okay, Adobe Bridge. There's Adobe Bridge. It makes a little thumbnail, a low resolution thumbnail, so you can just quickly look through your images and see which ones are good, which ones aren't, and categorize them. After a while, I realized that I'm wasting so much time in Bridge because it is still a part of Creative Cloud, despite it being free. It still phones home. I have to wait like 5 minutes for it to launch. So I was like, nope, I'm throwing this out. I looked more and I found DGCam. DGCam is written in Qt. It's C++, so it's efficient. And it pretty much does what Adobe Bridge does. It even adds an extra with its own like raw editor. You can do some basic editing with it. The only bad thing with it is that if you move more than 100 photos at a time, it says not respond.
Yeah, and that's Digicam that's Digicam DIGIKAM, correct? All right, I brought it up on the I brought it up full. Gotcha. Yeah, it's so if you guys want to take a look at it, I brought it up right now on the screen so you can see the website. I'll stick the link also in the chat window. But as you can see, this is very similar, and I can see that it does have geolocation for tagging things. Also, there's probably a lot of things that are very similar to what you see in Adobe Bridge, right? Uh-huh. Nice, nice. Yeah, that is
Wait, I have
definitely
no audio?
you know, that's interesting because I'm going to take a look real quick at my list of alternatives, because if I don't have that in there, we're going to have to add it in. Let me see here.
Seems like I have no.
Yeah, I don't think I have that in there. I'm going to have to add that. Matter of fact, I'm going to share my screen real quick, everyone. This is that link that I told you about. Let me go ahead and pull that up so you can see it. This right here is on my website, the JCristina.com website. If you go to JCristina.com/life- after Adobe alternatives, right? Life after Adobe alternatives with dashes in between. I put that link in here so that you can get there easily. You can see that I have alternatives in here. And what I did is I broke them down. This was the last Life after Adobe. This is the first one that I came up with. And I broke it down based on the package. And then, is it Mac, Windows? Is it something that's on like a pad, like an iPad? Or if it's on Linux or a combination. And then I also put in there a price. Now, of course, the prices on here are a year old because this is from last year and a half old. But as you can see here, this is a Photoshop list of alternatives. And there is a bunch. And I went through all of these. And then we have Lightroom alternatives, and there's a bunch of this. We were talking about down here, Raw Therapy. This is one that you were talking about. Once again, it's free. But as you can see, it's on Windows, Mac, Linux. So it's on all three platforms, which is really quite cool. Then we have Illustrator alternatives. Here's a bunch of Premiere alternatives. There is definitely a ton of video editing or NLEs here. You have your After Effects. There's not a lot of alternatives for that. And then you have Audition. Now, Audition, of course, is your audio stuff. And then finally, InDesign. So that's in here. We do not have that software, that Digicam. I don't believe in here. And it might be in one of these. But if it's not, I'm definitely going to add it because that is something that looks awesome. And I like the idea that you can use it, or you're using especially, for a bridge alternative, because that's one of the things that all of the software out there is lacking, is a means, or a really good means, of categorizing, cataloging their images. And that's why a lot of people go with Lightroom, because it's kind of like that combination of an editor and a DAM put together, a digital asset manager, like in one. So, but having alternatives to that, I think, is fantastic. So we're definitely going to add that into the list. What I also want, just so that I already wrote it into the chat, I want you guys to do is, in the comment area, even if you're watching this after the fact, put any alternatives that you don't see on this list that you think that I should dive deeper into, or if there's anything in there that has changed that you know that there's major developments that happened that you want me to take a look at, not to just kind of brush through, definitely stick them in there. Because like I said, starting now, this is the kickoff. Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord version 2 or update for 2021 is starting. So I'm going to start looking at all of these. We're going to see if we can bring some sponsors on board. Maybe I'm going to be giving away some key codes to some of the software. We'll see. I'll reach out to some of the people that I know in the industry for the last 10, 12 years. Because I used to, if you guys didn't know, I used to do Digital Photography Cafe for 8 or 9 years, and we used to interview a lot of these movers and shakers and the company CEOs and whatnot. So we're going to reach out. We're going to see if we can get some free stuff for everyone during this time. So anyways, I'm going to let you jump into it. I know there's a bunch of questions coming through. So if you see some, just highlight it, let me know, and then I'll stick it in here.
Am I audible now?
You are audible.
Hello?
Yep, you're there.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you. We're doing pretty good,
All right.
considering. Let me just, before we get back into this, we are right now at about just under an hour, like 10 minutes under an hour. We'll see how long we go. I was going to stop it after an hour. I'm probably going to let it run a little bit longer because our connection is doing pretty well. Once again, let me start out with anyone that just joined us. We're here with Yar. He's from Iran. And we're going through proxy servers and VPNs and all kinds of other stuff to get him here live. So it is an honor to have him on here as someone that is not only a creative now, but in the past, a programmer, someone that does both sides of the coin, which is very hard to find. There's very few times you'll find someone that does both programming and then does creative. So we're honored to have you on here. Thank you so much. And since we have this connection that's still going and we haven't cut out yet, I'm like amazed. So we're going to keep this going for a little bit. So let's jump into some of these other questions. Did you see some that stuck out?
I might have missed it.
Yeah, there's a lot coming through.
Is my audio cutting out?
Nope, your audio is good.
Yeah, okay. So there's some people saying Blender can edit videos, which is, yeah, that's true. It can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've used Blender in the past. It's not as easy, but yeah, it's definitely an option. But when DaVinci's there, it's kind of a hard option. There's other things that you can do with Blender that it's better for, in my personal opinion.
So
go ahead.
Okay, so my teacher for like the video editing said that during teaching he said that you and Premiere is free and you have to pay for DaVinci, and I was like, what? On what planet? On what planet?
Yeah, that's the way the teachers are. I don't know. Then again, in your country, like you were saying earlier, you were not having to pay for the Adobe software because you can literally go to the store and buy counterfeit versions of all the Adobe software, and it's
Like
like
the same
legal.
applies for DaVinci. Like the same applies for DaVinci. I can go get a cracked version of DaVinci. Like
Gotcha.
if that's how you're going to play it.
Right. Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah,
But
both sides,
luckily
though.
with DaVinci you can get it for free. Now you said you were using raw therapy, right?
Yeah.
Was one of the main
Yeah.
softwares that you were using when it comes to dealing with your photos.
Yeah.
Have you as far as the alternatives when it comes to raw therapy, have you tried things like On One Software, Luminar, or Capture One, or DxO,
Well,
or any of the other software that a lot of people have looked at?
well, I would have, but like they are not available to me. There's no way for me to buy them.
Gotcha. Yeah, that definitely makes it hard, and then it's difficult to download trials probably too.
I mean, trials would be worth it, but my net speed is very slow.
Right. Probably my internet speed is probably as slow as yours, sadly. The studio where I'm at is really far out from the local D-Slam, which is where we get our fiber. So at the number of feet away that I am, we're sitting at a very slow meg for sure. But it kind of is what it is. You make do with whatever you have. Let's see what else we got in here. There's been some questions about, 3D. Of course, Blender is a really great program for doing any kind of 3D work. Absolutely.
Blender is pretty much like one of the top softwares for 3D.
Yeah.
Like there's 3D Max and like Maya, but like Blender is just one of the top,
Right.
and it performs really well on Linux.
Have you done any work with any type of like an Illustrator or an Illustrator alternative for doing vector type of work?
Well, for vector, no. I pretty much always use Raster, but I have done like digital paintings of sorts. I'm not an expert. I'm pretty much a beginner, but like I've done some, especially for my like current video. I had to remake some of the Yakuza Combat logos from scratch because like they were too low res.
Yeah. And
For
then
that, I used. Okay, go on.
yeah, what software?
So for that, I used Krita because I don't have the budget to like buy Adobe design. Sorry, Affinity Design. So
Gotcha, yeah.
I'm using Krita, but I will move to Affinity Design if I have the capital for it.
Yeah, Krita is definitely a good one. If you need Illustrator alternatives, you have Inkscape, which is really good. I use that for certain things. That works out really good. Of course, you have Affinity Designer. It's probably the one that I use most. So if you guys don't know the difference between what Yar was saying with raster in comparison to vector, if you need lettering, okay, and you need to be able to blow it up any size, when you work with a raster based lettering, when you shrink it and then enlarge it again, now all of a sudden you start seeing all the pixels, right? Whereas if you work with vector, there is no pixels, right? You can make it the size of a billboard or you can make it tiny, tiny, the size of an ant. It's still the exact same image. It's still the same text. So that's why whenever we do, for example, as magazines or anything like that, we're going to use vector-based because you can enlarge or shrink at will and not have to worry about it. Now, there's some other ones. I'll just give you a quick list. There's one called Vector that is a web-based piece of software. That's VECTR. You have Autodesk Graphics. You have Sketch 52. That's something that I took a look at. You also have Figma. That's FIGMA. You have Clip Studio Paint. You also have Corel Draw. Corel Draw has their graphic suite. Some of that does have a vector base built into it. But for me, what I use almost solely is the Affinity Designer, just because it works so well and it links up very well with Affinity Photo as well as Publisher. And what Affinity did differently is if you have Publisher, you can now, from inside of the package, use Photo or Designer inside one app instead of having three open. I thought that was a really cool means of bringing everything into one spot. You obviously have to own all three, but now you can actually use all three through one app instead of having multiple open. So I thought that was really quite interesting. So for you, it would be Krita then. So it looks like, oh, he's back. He's coming. Are you back? I saw you there for a second. While he's getting the feedback together here, what I wanted to say to you guys is, once again, if you have any questions, keep them coming in the comment area. I figured we'd lose Yar a couple of times during this conversation just because we are basically having a conversation through a proxy, through a VPN, and everything else to be able to get him here. Yar is coming in from Iran, and I think it's probably getting late over there. Can you hear me now? Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, there you go. He's
I'm
back.
here. Hello.
All right. Yeah, I can hear you. Let me see. What else do we have here in here? Let's see. Yeah, he's having definitely, the internet is always the hard factor when it comes to doing stuff overseas if you don't have a really strong connection. Let's see, there's some software.
Like, this should be peer-to-peer. I don't know why it's blocked.
It should be peer-to-peer, yeah. Because we are using OBS, so it's kind of strange. Here's a question, or more of a statement. We have Pinwin says, Affinity Suite, I agree 100%. DaVinci Resolve, Blender, Darktable, and HitFilm. He said for him, that's what he's using right now. HitFilm is another one. If you guys want to take a look at something that you can get a base version for free and then go to a pro, HitFilm has a lot of really great like internals to it for doing a lot of stuff when it comes to compositing video. So definitely take a look at HitFilm. Now, as far as Darktable is amazing. It's free. It's a Lightroom alternative. I really like it. Have you tried Darktable? What was your thoughts on it, Yar?
I didn't use Darktable because it didn't fully support 200D when I was looking for alts.
Right.
In a chart, Raw Therapy and Darktable were pretty much close to supporting it, but Raw Therapy had the most amount of support.
Gotcha.
So that's why I went for the other one.
Yeah,
for editing, there is also Lightworks. For editing, there is Lightworks, but it's like caps you at 720p.
Gotcha.
If you don't pay.
Yeah, some of them I know they'll throw like watermarks onto things. Some, they'll do different things to get you to pay. The way HitFilm does it is they will. One of the things they do is they'll limit the amount of those, let's say, plugins or features within it. But there's a lot of stuff that you can do for free. So definitely, when it comes to video, definitely take a look at HitFilm. I personally use DaVinci Resolve. That's just because that's the one that I chose to work with after going through all of them during the first, or my primary Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord. So I really, really liked it because it worked out just awesome. Now, when it comes to Lightroom, I use a bunch of packages. I don't use just one, and there was reasons why. At the time, I've tested out a lot of different packages for Lightroom alternatives. And some of them, let me see here, was on one software. I tried Luminar, Capture One was quite good. Alien Skins at the time, now it's Exposure, or now it's Exposure 6. It was Exposure 4 at the time. Aftershot Pro, that was a Corel piece of software. There was a bunch of them. Of course, Light Table and Raw Therapy and whatnot. But what I noticed is like perfect example is like with Luminar. Luminar was an awesome Lightroom alternative. It did a great job, but it stumbled when it wouldn't allow us to be able to put watermarks on our images. So as soon as you can't put watermarks on your images, all of a sudden as a professional, you're like, that's it. Yes, you can bring them into Photoshop. You can bring them into, obviously, as a alternative. We're looking at probably like a, let's say, Affinity Photo or whatnot, and then stick it on there. But you want to be able to just bake it in on export right out of the package. So Luminar didn't do it, so that was kind of out of the game. But if you didn't need it, it did pretty much everything else. So right now we're using a lot of On1 software, the Photo Raw, as well as Capture One, and we're also using the Exposure X6, which is really good. And we use them for different aspects of photo editing. Certain packages just work better for certain things. Whereas if you're in Lightroom, okay, you just have Lightroom. And that's it. And one of the things that really was bad for us is we have over, I think it's like 2 million photos, I think now, on the NAS, on our servers. And when you start building these larger catalogs with Lightroom, it just, the software just goes absolutely haywire. It just runs like crap and you just can't work with it. So with the software that you're currently using, Raw Therapy, do you have any problems with having large catalogs, or does it not catalog, or how does that work with Raw Therapy? Because I haven't used it as of late.
I hadn't used Raw Therapy for like cataloging. Like I instead of just use it for editing. Hello? Oh, okay.
Gotcha. And it works and it runs pretty quickly though, as far as for editing, it runs good?
No, like my only problem with Raw Therapy was that it's slow.
Gotcha.
Like if I wanted to export, like I had to wait way longer than like I would wait for Affinity.
Right. Yeah, I can see that being the case. The same thing like we were talking about earlier when it comes to raw images. A lot of these packages will just really quickly be able to support your latest and greatest camera, whereas other software companies take a longer period of time to get the raw conversions or whatever into it. And that was always a major issue when it came to Corel, for example, with Aftershot. But what they ended up doing was they made it so that you can download updates from within the software itself for those raw updates. So that was kind of cool in comparison to having to do an entire new build, let's say, of the software and reinstallation. So yeah, that's an issue. I do also want to say that like I said before, you can always convert your photos to DNG. And some photographers out there have been doing this for years because DNG is kind of agnostic, right? You can use it on just about any piece of software in comparison to sticking with your raw photos. So you can convert to DNG, take your raw photos and stick them onto, cold storage somewhere and only work on the DNGs, and you can just move from platform to platform with no problem. So that's always a possibility. Have you tried doing anything like that with moving your raw images that come out of that SL2 or your 200D into a DNG? Have you tried any of that?
I didn't do it with DNG, but like back then, Affinity didn't support my files. What I did was converting my files from Raw Therapy to TIFF, which is a lossless file, and they were very heavy. They were like 300 megabytes each, and I put that in the Affinity photo for editing.
Right.
Because I didn't know DNG existed.
Yeah. And it's definitely it's a good it's a good alternative, and some people like it because, like I said, it's agnostic. You don't have to worry about the companies getting the latest and greatest out there when it comes to raw conversion. Let me see here. I love this. The overlord of procrastination.
Also, there
That's
was
perfect. He says, I've not missed Adobe once since leaving. And that seems to be the case with a lot of people. Like I said, when I came out with the Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord series, a lot of people left. And what they were coming back with is, yeah, it took a slight bit of a learning curve, a couple of weeks to get used to it, but once you get into these software, you'll find that just about everything that you can do with Adobe software you can do with alternatives. And the fact of the matter is you're not paying ad nauseum in perpetuity for a piece of software that you never own, right? At any time it could be turned off, whereas when you're buying a piece of software, then you decide. It's up to you. Do you want to update or not? Do you want to pay the upgrade fee or do you not want to pay the upgrade fee? Is there anything that they're giving to you that promotes upgrading, that makes you think that, yes, I need to update? And that is one of the things, like I said before, that happened with Adobe. Once they came up with this lease model, this rent model, everything kind of went to sleep because at that point they don't need to innovate anymore. They could just iterate and just put small little updates into it. Like I said before, little AI tweaks and you can do this and that. But most of the stuff people didn't want or need. So it just kind of is what it is. So by making it so that you have to pay for an update, it's making these companies have to innovate and make you buy those updates. And I think that's very powerful. Let me see here. Frank Jones says, "What about Digicam?" Which other you see another question?
So there's something about. No, I'm like, oh wait, how Kudo works? Like the Kudo works on this editing software on rendering. CUDA is like a core in NVIDIA GPUs, but I don't know which software you're talking about. Like this software, like which one are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. Someone asked.
Also, there's something
about.
there's something about TIFF files and Affinity Photo. Last time when I made my logos, I did a part of it in Krita, exported it to TIFF, and gave it to Affinity. I did some changes and saved it. And what was interesting to me was that Affinity remembered the layers in TIFF. Like when I put it back in Affinity again, it still had 2 layers.
Right. That, I think we lost your audio there for a second. What Yara is saying is really interesting when it comes to Affinity. Not that this is like an Affinity sponsored video in any sort, but they do a really good job.
I cannot be paid by anyone outside the country.
Exactly. There you go. But bringing people into the platform is really nice because a lot of times people are asking, well, if I am a Photoshop user, can I bring my my PSD files into Affinity Photo? And the answer to that is yes. Now, will every single layer work? No, but most, let's say like 90% or maybe even higher, 95% will. Same thing with Illustrator. Can I bring my AI files into the Affinity Designer? And the answer is yes, you can. And a lot of those layers will remain. So that is something that was really powerful for me because coming from Adobe for decades, I had a lot of files that I needed to bring over. And making those conversions really didn't take long at all, which was quite powerful, actually. Let me see here. If you see any more questions, jump in there.
Well, I just saw how does CUDA work in this software, and I still don't know which software he's talking about.
Oh, well, we'll wait for him to stick it, to put it in there. Let me see.
Okay.
Simel says using Affinity Suite as well as Krita, Blender, and I don't know what this is. This Quib Mix, that's QUIXEL Mixer. I haven't seen what that one is. Yeah, that one I don't know about. That's something that I'm going to copy and paste because, like I said earlier, If there's any software that you don't see on that list, and I will put that list up again. Let me do it right now so that you guys see it, because I think it's very important. If you do not see the software that you're currently using on this list, all right, you can go over to jcristina.com/life after Adobe alternatives. And I'll stick that also once again into the chat. But if you do not see any of the software that you're using, like the one that I just see there, let me know, because these are different packages that I will end up reviewing, taking a look at, and comparing them against each other, so that now with the 2021 version of Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord, it'll be more current. So definitely go over there, check that out, and either in the comment below this video or here in the chat window, put those software. I'm going to look at this one right now because I've never heard of that as of yet. So we'll definitely add that to the mix. Let's see what else we got in here. Let's see. Thomas says, one of my huge beefs with Adobe is also with them jacking up my favorite web coding language. Of course, that's Cold Fusion. Yes, this happens all the time. They're constantly playing with stuff, breaking stuff. That's like the nature of the beast. That's what they seem to always be doing. Let's see what else we have here. Go ahead.
The problem with Adobe is that it has too much market share.
Yep.
Like whenever a
100%
company has like too much market share, too much power, like these stuff pop up. We've seen it with Intel, we're seeing it with Adobe, we're seeing it with Sony, but Sony in like console space, not like gaming space, not like in the camera or digital markets.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, 100% sure. That is the fact. I did find this software. Let me go ahead and bring it up here and see what it is. I guess Mixer 2020 3D texturing for everyone, free software. All right, so I'm definitely gonna write this down as something to check out, because this is their website here. I threw it up on the screen so everyone can see it. So I guess this is a 3D texturing piece of software. So this would be, I guess, a replacement to, or something like, let me see here. Oh yeah, this is good. This is pretty good. So we can download this for free, and I'm going to guess there's probably some type of paid version too, unless the whole software is free. I'm not sure, but it's something that we can definitely look at. So let me ask you one other thing. When it comes to your Photoshop alternative that you're currently using, are you using it all the time? Is it something that you originally used Photoshop and now you've moved into Affinity Photo and you're there and you don't miss anything? Is there anything from the Adobe Photoshop package that you feel that's missing from the Affinity Photo that you're currently using?
Well, the last time I used Photoshop was like in in CS3. Like it was very old back then. So it's definitely,
yeah.
Affinity probably has all of that.
Yeah. That's quite some time for sure.
So Frank said use Digicam to replace Lightroom. Digicam's editor is missing quite a bit compared to like Lightroom or like raw therapy, but it is an excellent replacement for the asset management. At least that's what I think. I mean, use case is different. Maybe he uses different things, but in my experience, that's what it was.
Well, we have here, let me see. Yep, we do have that slight delay, so between the two of us. Let's see, Ian says, for 30 years ago, I used to do the pre-press work for Serif's packaging. Wow, in the UK. That's very, wow, that's interesting. I'd love to hear more about that. Serif is a company that's been around, and I guess you're speaking about Serif as the Affinity Home parent company. They've been around for a long time, and really, I would say haven't got famous until the Affinity packages. They've been doing stuff for years prior to that, but once
I
Affinity,
think they made.
go ahead.
I said, like, I wanted to say that I think Serif made image editing software before Adobe originally. I think,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I know they've been around for ages and ages, for sure. I'm not sure when they started, but if Ian is still on here, maybe he can put some more information in there, because I find it fascinating when you see companies that been around doing stuff for many, many moons, right, for many years, and then finally they just, I wouldn't say blow up, but kind of blow up. I mean, they're probably the number one, number two alternative for Adobe software currently out there. So they're doing something right for certain. Let's see, Penguin says, hit film should appear more as a After Effects replacement than as a Premiere Pro. I agree with that. I'm going to stick this comment into the highlighted comments over here, because I would agree with you. You can use HitFilm for obviously doing all kinds of video editing, just like in any other NLE, but absolutely, there is a ton of things that you can do with HitFilm when it comes to doing like After Effects type of style work. So any type of compositing and whatnot, and they do a really good job at it. So HitFilm is something that, like I said earlier, to take a look at if you guys haven't taken a look at that, if you're looking for video. Let me see. Frank says, I use Digicam to replace Lightroom. Yes, you can definitely do that. Like Yar said, you can use it, but it's more what he uses it for is for doing that, I guess, categorizing things, right? Putting them into place, almost like a DAM, like a digital asset manager. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it works out well for that.
That's what I do with it.
Let me see here. Shape builder tool for designer would be welcome. Yeah, that would be that would be nice. Overlord from Procrastination says, yeah, shape builder tool for Affinity Designer would be welcome. Yeah, there's some things that Affinity still does not have as of yet that I know from behind the scenes. They're working on a lot of different things, but you'll the one thing that I have to say is you're going to see a lot of jumps when it comes to Affinity and some other packages out there. A perfect example is On One, as well as Luminar is doing really amazing stuff, and of course Exposure is doing really great when it comes to Lightroom, for example, alternatives. Once again, leaps and bounds. They're doing a lot, whereas, like we were talking about, Adobe's doing a little, and that seems to be like the case. Let me see here. Unreal Engine. Let me see. I used to. Okay. Once again, guys, if you have not done it yet, any software that you want me to cover, put it in the comments underneath this video or in the chat window, and I will be writing them down. For all the people that just got online, just came aboard watching this, really quickly, Yar, give the little elevator speech, as we say, of who you are. Once again, this is Yar from Iran, coming to us live using a proxy and a VPN, and that's why sometimes it doesn't look great, and his voice is sometimes a little bit behind, and there is a slight delay, so it's not the best, but having him here is absolutely amazing. So if you can, just tell everyone who you are, just kind of a quick little synopsis.
Well, the honor is mine. Let's call myself your oracle in the Digiverse. I'm from Iran. I studied computer engineering for 2 years. Then I left my field and changed my field to something more artsy, which was television and digital arts. And here I am.
Nice.
Talking to you.
There you go. It's amazing that we're able to talk, all the way from over there to here, and And the things that we do are very similar. You have that background of programming. I did a lot when it came to the more technical side of stuff. I ran a software company for about 13 years before I went back to doing what we know today as a DP, director of photography. I do a lot of corporate work when it comes to fashion and product photography, and I do high-end like gala work also. So I've been doing that for a long time, but moving back into the creative side, just like you went more tech into the creative side, because I absolutely love it. You know, you have to love what you do. Life is too short. There's too many people that are doing things every day. They wake up and they do stuff just to make a dollar, and they're miserable every single day. Not good. Not good at all. So anyways, we're going to get about 5 more minutes, and then we're going to cut this because I know it's starting to get late over there for you. Your camera is probably only going to last so much longer, and then we're going to lose you. So we're going to give about 5 more minutes. Any questions that you guys have, throw them into the chat
Actually,
right now.
actually, apparently it's on full battery, you know.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That is amazing. The last time we had a problem.
I mean,
know
I flipped it over. I flipped it over. It's on full battery.
Oh, nice. Nice. Let me see.
Because I didn't charge it back then, like it was just from the camera.
Ah, gotcha. Let me see what else is in the chat window over here. Let's see. Zamel says the software itself became free after Epic happened. Then we have Jamie says, I need to hear/see more about HitFilm. Definitely go check out HitFilm. It's worth looking at for sure. Definitely worth looking. They cripple it unless you pay for it, but even though it's crippled, it does a lot. So you can get around some of that crippling, if you know what I mean. So definitely check it out. It'll give you a good feel for it to see if you want to actually buy it or not. Let's see. Gene says, have you looked at Cavalry as a replacement to After FX? And I have not. That's something that I will write down. That could be something to look at. I will do that now. Ian says, at the time, Serif's main line was Page Plus. Wow, that is definitely some time ago. If you recall correctly, or if he recalls correctly, he said it was a cheap word on steroids. Now, just so you guys, I'm sure he feels like he's dating himself, but just so you get an idea of how long I've been doing this. When I first got out of school, I was doing paste up and layout at an advertising agency doing cover work, magazine cover work. The thing was, there was no software like PageMaker or anything like that. We were doing paste up and layout, hence the name. We were taking words that were coming out of the Veritype machine and then pasting it up to be then taking photos off to make a plate to go run. So I've been doing this for some time. All right, like I said, probably definitely just aged myself by another 10 years, but it is what it is. So this kind of software has been around for some time, but not for as long as we've been doing this stuff, for sure. Frank says, I'm retired IT professional moving back into creative. Congratulations, Frank. That is awesome. Awesome. Out of St. Petersburg, Florida. Another Floridian. It was cold today, guys. We're in South Florida, and for some damn reason, it was 42 or 43 degrees. What is that? Over here, that is freezing.
I hope that's not Celsius.
No. That's Fahrenheit. But it was cold. It was really, really cold. And in Florida, that doesn't only happen a few times out of the year. A partner of mine that I used to do digital photography cafe with, that I used to travel from one end of the country to the other, covering events like WPPI and Photo Plus Expo and all this type of stuff. He's in Jersey, and he's got about, I think, 3.5 feet of snow on the ground. So I have to like dig him a little bit. I'm like, yeah, it's 42, but it's there's not snow to be seen, and it's perfectly clear, So he hates me for it, but that's all right. What else we got here? Look at this. Hugo, Pugo, says hello from Israel. Stay safe. Thank you for being here. We've got people from all over the place. I think we had Germany. We have Israel here. You're calling in from Iran. We have like an eclectic bunch. I think there was a couple of Canadians that were in first. Let me see. Pergo says, I'm a hobby game developer. I used FOSS for over 6 years. There you go. That's a game developer there coming out of Israel. That's awesome. Let's see what else we have here.
Go.engine rocks for game developing.
Does it? See, that you know more than me, because that's out of my wheelhouse. Never played with it.
Well, I want to become a game designer, so like I did some research about it.
Wow.
And like in my pipeline for the game I'm designing, Godot is the center of it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. See, let me see. What else do we have? Frank says still better than 18 inches of snow in New York. Yeah. Wow, that's no fun. Definitely no fun. Tor is coming in from Norway. How's it going, Norway? Wow, it's getting people from all over the world. Steve says we're managing. He had 22 inches of snow. Wow. Man, I wish I could pull this camera off and go show you outside. It's crazy. That's just absolutely crazy. Penguin is from Chile. Nice. Welcome. Let's see. We have Alabama. Sweden. Edward is from Sweden. Tarpon Springs, Florida. That's Randall. Wow. You've been watching for a while. Well, welcome. 3 days really cold. Yes. High winds. It's been crazy. Stay safe. You too. Glad to have you on here. We have Wales. Gene from Wales. No snow in Wales. Wow. See, we're an eclectic bunch here. Like I said, we have you on from Iran. We're here in the States, and then we have people from the rest of the world, all with similar type of backgrounds or similar type of interest, which I think is amazing. Keith is from South France, so we have France also. How are you doing, Keith? So, boiling kind of all down, just to kind of sum up a little bit, and if there's more questions that come through, we'll answer them. But going forward, this is kind of the kickoff for me to do the Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord update, the 2021 update. There was thousands of photographers, like I've said, that converted from Adobe and used this series or this playlist that I put together, the Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord, to move from Adobe to other alternatives. So I was honored because a lot of people have said that they've saved just a ton of money by doing it. And I really do appreciate all the positive feedback that I've received for putting that together, the Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord. And a lot of you have said, listen, I want to hear more of it. I want to know, what do you think about the current packages out there? So this is what I'm going to be doing now, coming up from the beginning of February. This is the kickoff to doing that update. So I'm going to be looking at a lot of the latest and greatest. A perfect example is Exposure X6. When I did a review on it, it was Exposure X4. So we're 2 revisions down the road. How does it compare to On 1? How does it compare to Capture 1? How does it compare to whatever? So we're going to go through all that coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'll be doing the latest news and reviews and all the commentary that I normally do, but I'm going to also jump back into the Life After Adobe series because so many of you have wanted it. I think it's a good time to do it. So let's get back into any of the questions. If you see any questions, jump in. If not, if there's anything that you want to jump in with, go right ahead and put it out there, because I know there's a lot of stuff.
Someone said the very important issue.
Go ahead.
Your voice cut out.
Yeah, go right ahead. Jump in.
I said your voice cut out, so I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, God, no, go right ahead. There was an important issue. Jump into that.
Well, Asosoft said, hi, very important issue, and that's it.
Oh,
that's all he said.
Oh, gotcha. I thought, okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, I do agree. So the reason I think that it's important is because so many people out there have been taught in schools that they have to use Adobe product or they cannot be a professional. They have to use Adobe product to be able to get a job. They have to use Adobe product because it is the mainstay out there in the field. The problem with that is these change continuously. And if you only learn one because the instructor said that you need to only know, for example, Premiere, but you don't know anything else, well, when times change, you're going to know only one thing. So I am a proponent of learning a lot of things. And that's why, like, for example, with Lightroom, I use Capture One, I use On One, I use Exposure, I use a lot of different products in comparison to only using Lightroom. There's other things out there. And just like with cameras, there's no perfect piece of software. There's no perfect camera. There is things that certain pieces of software do better than others. And if you don't know what those things are and you're very tunnel visioned, let's say, then you stick with one thing and that's it. That's what happens a lot of times when it comes to people with cameras. They get stuck with one specific platform, they don't look elsewhere, and then they become fanboys and only just look at that one package, let's say Canon. I don't think that it is healthy. I don't think that it's good. I think looking at other packages are very important. And that's why on this channel, I've always been eclectic. Never a fanboy. You guys all know that I've been shooting Canon for a couple of decades, but this right now is being shot with a Sony. It is what it is. This just works out better. It had a better ROI, a better return on investment, better value than going with another 80D or 90D or an R5 or whatever it is. Okay, this just made more sense. So that's why I'm using a Sony here. So I think it's very important to know a lot of different pieces of software, even if you're not ready to switch to Adobe alternative, but just learning other software and then later on saying, well, wow, at this point, I really don't need Lightroom anymore because this software does everything that Lightroom's doing. Or the same thing with Premiere or with Publisher, with InDesign, or with whatever. Okay, it is very powerful to know a lot of different things, and that's what I'm trying to do with this Life After Adobe cutting the cord thing. It doesn't mean that everyone has to cut the cord, but just to know what is out there, I think is very empowering for creatives, people that are out there creating. If you go into an environment and you just don't know, well, it's going to be hard to get that job. Okay, these teachers are simply wrong. Just saying that you have to know any Adobe software to be able to get a professional job is ludicrous. It is absolutely not the case, because 10, 15 years ago, you had to know Final Cut, right? And what happened to Final Cut? All right, now all of a sudden it's Premiere. So, take all this stuff that the teachers say with a grain of salt and learn, I think, everything, or at least know it, be proficient with it. So that's just my thoughts on it. You have any thoughts that you have? Jump in there.
I have a very a programming view of these sort of softwares. You have to know the steps. You have to know the principles of it. And everything else is just that, okay, I want to cut, I want to fade in. How do I do it in this software? How do I blend in the background with the foreground in, for example, I don't know, on one instead of Photoshop. So you just have to know the principles. The rest of them are just I don't know how to say it.
No, absolutely.
I have no words for it.
I agree 100%. It's like once you know what you're doing, you can go and change your hotkeys to whatever you want, and now all of a sudden you can jump into another package. But if you understand how to do the bases, then it is what it is. The same thing goes with photography. If you shoot manual, you know what goes on in a camera, you know how the camera works. It's very easy to be able to move from camera system to camera system, even though the menus are different, but everything, all the basics are there. Your ISO, your shutter speed, whatever you set your f-stop to, how those trinity work together, and that's just it. It doesn't matter what camera you use. The same thing if you're shooting film. If you understand the underpinnings of a digital camera, you can go out there and shoot film and be proficient at it and not have to worry about it. I can walk into a situation where the lighting is horrible and I will know, well, I'm going to need to be at 2000 ISO. My f-stop needs to be about 4.5, and the shutter speed needs to be at a 60th, let's say, to be able to capture this. All right. I just know because I've done 1 million shots, 2 million shots over the course of filling up that NAS that sits over there. So it's a lot. And I think that that's what's really important, even with software, knowing the basis, the underpinnings of it, and then you can move to anything. And like what Yar was saying earlier, is once you know, for example, Premiere, if you load in Resolve, right, DaVinci Resolve, as soon as you load in, it says, hey, do you want to use DaVinci Resolve hotkeys, or do you want to use Final Cut hotkeys, or do you want to use Premiere hotkeys, or whatever? Let's say you hit Premiere, now all of a sudden the entire package is built around Premiere's hotkeys. So instead of like doing, let's say, a Control B to be able to make your slices, or an R, or a cut, or a T, or whatever, you changed it now to whatever you know. So it's very easy to get into. Once again, knowing how to edit with an NLE, a nonlinear editor, is just simply the crux of it, right? You get that down, and now you can go to anything. You can go to, like we were talking about, HitFilm, or use a free package, whatever it is. It's just knowing the underpinnings of what's going on, and that goes, true with software and hardware. It doesn't really matter. Let's see. Hey, Jose is in from Puerto Rico. He says, hey, Joe, how's it going over there? I hope it's not cold like it is here in Florida. We're supposed to be tropical like you guys. I don't know what's going on.
The chat is basically... the chat is basically now like in a war zone about like, is Adobe really bad? Like, what's about Adobe? That's what I'm seeing here.
Is it really bad? Yeah. So I don't think so. Okay. So, all right. So even though I started the whole movement, Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord, do I think it's bad? Absolutely not. For some people, Adobe is a great way to go. If you are a photographer that just needs like Photoshop and Lightroom, $10 a month is not a bad thing, right? But what happens is you're paying $120 a year. The second year, you're at $240. The fourth year, you're up to $480, so on and so forth. In perpetuity, never owning a thing, renting a car, never owning it, okay? If you're okay with that and you can write it off as it's a business expense, well, that might be okay. But if you need to do some video editing, if you need to do some vector-based work like you would with me with doing Publisher or InDesign or whatever, well, you're going to need other packages. Or you can buy them individually for $10, $10, $10, $10 per month, or you buy the whole package for $50 or whatever it is, and now you're paying $50. Now all of a sudden it's no longer $120 per year. All right. Now, all of a sudden, it starts getting serious. Now you're paying $600 every year for the full package. 50, 50, 50, 50, 50 ad nauseum, right? So now you're at 600, then you're at 1,200. Now, all of a sudden, you're at $2,400 paid to Adobe after 4 years. That's a lot of money. And a lot of people, they don't want to do that. They want to know that there's alternatives out there. Is Adobe crap? No. Some of the stuff I don't like. I don't like some of the things they do to their people. I don't like their online platform at all. They've lost images from people in the past with their online CC, lost a lot of data. So there's a lot of things that they've done from a multi-hundred-million-dollar, billion-dollar company. But is it bad? No, but there needs to be an understanding that there is alternatives. So if you want to go with an alternative, you can. You don't have to be stuck paying, like I said, $6,000 or whatever, or $600 per year, or $2,400 over 4 years, or whatever we came up with. A lot of money. And this, like I said, goes on forever. Now imagine doing this for 10 years. Now you're out $6,000 to Adobe. That's a lot. That's why Adobe right now has made more money. Their stocks have went up the most. Their company has made more money than ever in the history of Adobe. Why? CC. People pay and they pay and they pay, and they don't even think about it. That's my rant.
So it's always not about like the money. It's not always about the money. So like Maya Keller says that like you're not just talking about the money. I'm not here representing the cash problem. Sometimes it's a matter of principle. Okay. For example, like Adobe does something that you disagree with, some people disagree with, and you just don't want to support them anymore. It's not a matter of cash. Sometimes it's a matter of principle.
Absolutely. I agree. And, round robining to back what you said a while ago about that you're using software that you purchased instead of using software that you could have got counterfeit on the open market in your country of Iran. I mean, that's very respectable.
Yeah.
And, being a programmer, you know what goes into the software and creating it. So you didn't want to do that. And that I thought was an amazing story. And I
Yes, as
compliment you 10 times, 100 times over.
as much as I don't like Adobe as a company, it doesn't justify me stealing from them. Like, yeah, the company is bad, but like the people there worked for that software. I don't want to be like stealing from them.
Right. Absolutely. I agree 110%. And especially when you see Affinity, for example, or other packages that are $20, $30, $70, less than $100, and now you own it. And you can then decide if you want to upgrade or not. You don't have to upgrade. It's completely up to you. And I think that's what's really powerful. Giving the power back to the creative and not having the creative feel stuck with a certain whatever, a certain piece of software, and they can never come out. And that was one of the things that moved me to going from the Adobe Illustrator over to the Affinity Publisher, because Publisher allowed me to bring in those AI files, and a lot of those layers were still there. That was very powerful because I had so many. Obviously, as some of you guys have been with me for a long time. I am the creator, I am the inventor of a lot of different products, like the focus pyramid, the autofocus lens calibration tool, the PRT, which is the photo reference tool, all of the Aurora camera care stuff, from the lens cleaning as well as sensor cleaners. There's a lot of products that I've invented, so there's a lot of packaging that I have to come up with. I don't source that out. I create all of the packaging myself using this type of software. The majority of the packaging that you see currently for all of my products, including my Dark Moon teas that I came out with, because a lot of people wanted to know where they can get the tea that I'm constantly drinking, and it is my tea brand, Dark Moon Teas. All of that, everything I created from ground up using this software, this alternative software. So you don't need Adobe to be able to do professional work. It's absolutely absurd. But that's a lot that we hear in the industry. That's a lot of it that I've gotten. Why aren't you using Adobe? There's a lot of reasons. And like you said, it doesn't always have to do with money. It has to do with principle. Principle is sometimes more important than money, right?
And for me, it is principle, because like, as I said, I can go get like Adobe Creative Cloud and even have it updated for free through pirated software, but I choose not to. I don't want to do that. I have faced this before, like the saying that, why aren't you using Adobe? I've been rejected like a couple of jobs every now and then because I said, no, I'm not going to use like Photoshop. I'm going to use Affinity Photo. Like, I've seen this before, so
Wow.
It is very annoying, but like that's there. And I said, okay, if you don't want me to use anything, if you want me to use Photoshop necessarily, then go tell someone else. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and that does happen. It happens in the industry, everywhere. As a DP, I work on set, doing a lot of episodic work. And we shoot from Panasonic small like S1Hs to Panasonic EVA 1s. And I wish I can get more into what it's a lot of it is NDA'd, so we really can't talk about it. But the point of the matter is the equipment that is used changes all the time based on what is now I wouldn't say fad, but what is the it for the day. Whereas what happens is if you don't know a little bit of everything, when the changes happen, all of a sudden you're stuck. And that's why I was saying, knowing a lot of different things and then being able to go on set and say, oh, what are you using? Oh, we're using Avid. All right. Well, a lot of people won't even know how to edit with Avid, right? But Avid's been around for decades, right? So whatever that is, knowing the background of obviously number one, being able to cut, being able to edit, but then also knowing a little bit being proficient, let's say, in all the different editors. Doesn't matter if it's Photoshop or with an NLE, with video or with Illustrator or whatever, having that proficiency is very important for getting a job. And when you go onto a job and someone says, oh, we're using Final Cut, and you're like, wow, what are you, like 10 years ago, right? But if you know Final Cut, then you're in there. It's not a problem. So knowing a little bit of everything, I think, is very, very important. Let me see here. Let me see, $10 here. Bykeller says, as someone who doesn't make profit at photography, editing Photoshop works well for me. At $10 a month, I've got all I need. And that is true. So Bykeller says, basically, I'm going to, matter of fact, put this up here. And I have to, I have to, once again, agree and concede that some people at $10 a month, this is a perfect example, Bykeller says here, $10 a month, they get everything that they need. They're going to get the Photoshop. They're going to get the Lightroom. That's all that they need. They feel the $10 a month, the $120 a year, $480 in 4 years is perfectly fine for what they're getting. And it is what it is. That is absolutely a valid point. A valid point. Now, in 4 years, if you were using alternatives, would you be paying, let's say, $500? Possibly or possibly not. It just depends if you wanted to update or not. So it's kind of up to you at that point in comparison to being forced to update. The problem that I have with a lot of the updates that Photoshop has been doing or that Adobe's been doing with like Photoshop and with Illustrator and a lot of the packages, even Premiere, they're very small steps. They're very iterative and not innovative. All right, there's not a lot of innovation going on over there because they don't really need to. Like I said earlier, it's kind of like the same old, right? They don't need to do anything. Same thing that happened with the camera industry.
They have too much power.
They have way too much power, 100%. And the thing that happened with the camera industry, and I'm sure
We've
you
seen it
can
with
see
Intel, NVIDIA.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with the camera industry, what has happened with them is for so long, everything went stagnant. Look at Canon. They were making these small iterations. They were just hacksawing stuff, throwing the hammer at them, right? And just breaking them down and pulling out so much stuff, as I call it, the ninja sword, right? And just neutering their cameras. And then what happened is they finally figured out that Sony was eating their lunch when it came to mirrorless. And now all of a sudden you got both Canon and Nikon coming out with mirrorless options that are quite good. Are they as good as the Sony options? Well, some say yes, some say no, but they're definitely getting there if they're not. So you wouldn't have seen that if you didn't have that competition. Okay. Whereas with like Adobe, there's basically no competition. They get you in the door. Now they don't have to innovate. They just iterate and you get the same old, and that's it. And you pay forever. So that's the one downside to any type of pay model. It doesn't have to be Adobe. There's other packages out there that are going this way too. There's a lot of musicians out there that know what I'm talking about with their software, right? A lot of it is pay to play. You buy that key, that dongle, and you're paying for it, right? Forever. So there's a lot of companies going that way because Adobe has done so well at making money with that rental model or that lease. Let's see. Let's jump back into a couple more questions before we get out of here. We've been going, oh my God, it's almost 2 hours. That is a long time. And you know what? Your connection, even though it's been fading in and out.
I said we were at it for 3 hours.
Yeah, even though your connection's been kind of fading in and out, it's still been pretty strong considering like most of you know, if you haven't, this is Yar. He's coming to us live from Iran, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. Let's see, any questions that you see here you want to highlight?
No, I don't see any questions. Just more like a talk about like back and forth between like Photoshop and like alternative software here.
Yeah.
So I think Bayakiller, I don't know how to read his name, like his username.
Yes.
I think he thinks that the series is just about saying Adobe is bad, but no, that's not what series is about. It's about saying that aside from Adobe, there are other options.
Right. Not to get
Bye Bayakiller.
Oh, there he goes. Yeah, he's left. So yeah, but I do agree. I understand where he's coming from. For him, And that's why I wanted to highlight his comments, because there's a lot of folks out there that are going to say, you know, $10 a month is fine for me and it does everything that I need. And that's fine until you want to start doing some vector-based something, right? And you need to use Illustrator, or you want to do some video and now you need to use Premiere. And unless you want to pay 10 and 10 and 10 and 10 and 10, you're going to get the package that's like $50 or more per month. And now all of a sudden we're at $600 a year. And like I said, in 4 years, you know, now you're at $2,400 or whatever. It gets to be very expensive really quickly. If you're a professional and you can afford it, then, you know, this might not even be an option. But the one thing that I have to say, and kind of round robining to the back end here of this from the very beginning, the thing is there is no one package, like I've said, that does it all and does it perfectly. There's certain packages that I use for certain things, even editing photo. I will edit a photo with, let's say, Luminar. I'll edit it with On1. I'll edit it with whatever, okay? And I'll do it based on what I need to do with that edit. Am I doing basic edits? Am I doing, like, maybe I'm pulling out a background? Some do a better job with the AI to pull out, let's say, skies or whatever. So there's certain things. And knowing that there are those options, I think, are very, very important. Jose says he's writing to Tom. He said he went that route and paid the price, never looked back. Jose went with Affinity Photo, publisher and designer. So that's the all three, that trinity that they're offering, which is quite cool. Let's see. Charles says, I sleep much better. I sleep much better with Affinity Designer and Resolve. Absolutely. Cheaper. You pay for it once. You own it. With Resolve.
Please check Discord.
What was that? Did I miss you?
Please check Discord, like, for a quick.
Oh, okay. Did you? The camera went? Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me go and check over there.
Yeah. No, the camera hadn't done.
The camera's doing good.
Like, it's flashing red.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. All right. Well,
it's flashing red, so it's about to run out.
No problem. So what we'll do is we'll cut it. We're literally at 1 hour, 55 minutes. I think this has been a really good conversation. I really do appreciate you being here. If there's anything else that people want to talk about, we can talk about it in the comment area. Also, don't forget to go over to the Discord server. You will see Yar there all the time. You'll see it. I just threw it up on the screen. You can go there to community.jcristina.com, head over there, join that Discord server. It's fantastic. A lot of great people like Yar are over there. Tech heads, video guys, photo guys, they're all there. Guys and gals. Just talking, and there's no trolls. So if you have a question, there's something there for everyone. Also, if you've been here all the way to the end, if you want to pick up any of my products, I just want to say go to JCristina.com and check them out. 20% off, use promo code YT20. I like to let everyone know about that because it is something that I offer. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be the teas or it could be any of my products. Pick those up. Once again, use promo code YT20 at checkout. So I want to say thank you so much, Yar, for being here. We'll definitely have to have you on again as I go forward with this Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord version 2, right? The update of 2021. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Once again, it's Yar from Iran.
The honor is all mine.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
The honor is all mine. I really enjoyed my time here.
And I'm sure everyone enjoyed you too, because we get a kind of a glimpse.
Your voice is cutting out.
That's all right. We get a glimpse of other folks from other parts of the world and how they use alternatives. I think it's fantastic. So once again, thank you so much for being here. And as always, everyone, thank you for being here. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these live events, and I think a lot of you have been enjoying it. I enjoy it. It's a great way that we can answer questions without having to worry about going in the comments and typing them. We can do it verbally right here and answer them. I'm going to do probably a bunch of these now that we're going into the life after Adobe cutting the cord thing. So anyways, thank you so much everyone for being here. Just want to once again say thanks to Yar. We'll see you very soon. Many blessings to each and every one of you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you very soon in the next video. Most likely, it'll probably be tomorrow, right? So take care, guys. We'll talk to you soon.